Welcome to Hybris Conversations. My name is Suresh Kochatil. Content, they say, is the king, and those who can generate it will make tons of money and even respect. To do that, one requires a skill that is admirable in terms of developing a research-based methodology where you understand the subject at depth and then bring along people who can actually help you generate more content. We have with us today Srini Babu Gedela, CEO of Pulses, an organization that transcends international boundaries and is into healthcare and related content management. Welcome to the show, Mr. Srini Babu. It's wonderful having with you a conversation about something which even I love a lot because I'm also into a content management background. So I was reading your profile on your website, and one of the most interesting things I found was that when you were doing a PhD in Vizag, you often traveled to Hyderabad by bus so that you could come to Hyderabad and possibly get enough content related matter here, and then of course you would go back. That actually led to the formation of an idea, I guess, which became a business later on. So can you tell us in a little bit more detail about those early days of your career?
Yes. So I did my B.Pharmacy, M.Tech and PhD at Andhra University. During my PhD, I faced a lot of difficulty in getting relevant literature for my research. So Andhra University is not having subscription to majority of the journals which are essential to do the research at the time, that is 2006, 2007 and 2008. So for my research I am not able to get the articles. So for those articles, to retrieve the articles as well as they download the articles, I have to travel to Hyderabad once in 15 days or once in a month. So I expressed the same concern when I got Young Scientist Award from Human Proteome Organization in 2007. What is the purpose I got the Young Scientist Award is I did applied a mathematical modeling technique for early stage identification of diabetes. The diabetes is major problem in India. So if you are able to identify the diabetes at early age, then it will be good. That's what is my research.
So when you were looking for the content, and those days there was no internet, at least there was the early days of internet.
Yes, internet is there, but the early days of internet, yes,
and
right.
There was not much of content being pumped into the into various forums. But what did you feel? I mean, you felt there's a problem with content today is the person who generates the content takes a lot of time to develop it. The person who wants to access it wants it free.
Yes.
Is there a dichotomy there?
Yes. At the time, if we have to access a content, it is subscription based. To download each article, we have to pay $70 or $80. As a young research scholar, we did not have that much money with us. Even our scholarship also is in thousands rupees, but we have to pay in dollars means it is impossible. So I expressed the same concern when I got Young Scientist Award from Human Proteome Organization in 2007. There at the people of scientists, all are the experts in proteomics. So I expressed the concern. Scholars and students from developing countries are facing a lot of difficulty in getting relevant literature for their research. So we have to open an open access journal to help the scholars, especially the developing countries, because other countries, developed nations are already having the subscription to majority of the journals, but as nations like India, Bangladesh or Nepal, these countries are not having the subscription to those journals, especially the Andhra University. Of course, the CCMB is having the subscription. Similarly, the Central University Hyderabad is having the subscription, but state universities like Andhra University, Usmania University are not having the subscription at that time. Okay. So I told them we have to open an open access journal to give the literature for free to each and every scholar. So after my suggestion, they expressed their support. Yes, you can start an open access journal, we will support. So after their support, we got about $10,000 support from the Human Proteome Organization in 2007, and we were able to start an open access journal called the Journal of Proteomics and Bioinformatics. After that, I moved to Stanford University to do my postdoctorate.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, somewhere along the way you mentioned the fact, the other trip in 2007 to receive the award was in South Korea, where you said you got the support for them. The germ of an idea was born that you could go ahead and build a database like that of articles. Then your trip to Stanford, I think each time there was a value addition that was happening in your life, isn't it? So, can you tell us what exactly happened in Stanford?
Yeah, so Stanford, I got a call from Stanford University to do my postdoctorate at Stanford University. Why I got a call? I did apply the mathematical modeling for early stage identification of diabetes. At Stanford as well as in Bay Area, cancer is very high, prostate, especially the prostate cancer. So, they asked me apply the same mathematical modeling for early stage identification of cancer. That is how I got a call from Stanford University to do my postdoctorate. So, after I received an invitation from the Stanford, originally I used to support, I have to be settled in India only, but after getting a call from Stanford, I went to Stanford and applied the mathematical modeling for early stage identification of cancer and published several papers. Still that research is very useful to the scientists across the world. So, initially my PhD is early stage identification of diabetes and my postdoctorate is early stage identification of cancer. These are very essential mathematical modelings for identification of the biomarkers. So, now the upcoming trend is the biomarker.
Yeah,
so, whatever the biochemicals are there, these biochemicals are the 100 years old models, but these biomarkers are the new advanced biomarkers. Now, the
COVID-19 test, that is what I was coming to actually.
Yes, COVID test also, a rapid test means it is a biomarker
test.
Biochemical means it takes time. So, these biomarkers at that time I did identified the importance of biomarkers, but at the time the major diseases are the diabetes and cancer. So, I applied this identification of biomarkers using the mathematical modeling technique. That is what is my research. You know, after went to the Stanford is one of the greatest alumni in the world. With their support, the open access journal, by the time I did started the Journal of Proteomics and Bioinformatics, with the support from the Stanford University alumni, I started few more journals in other fields like cancer science, biotechnology, pharmaceutical sciences, many other fields, around 10 to 12 open access journals we started. With their support, I started the journals, and we got the support also from the World Health Organization, National Institute of Health, EMBL, European Molecular Biology Laboratory. All those people, they started supporting the open access momentum. At that time, it is just starting.
Correct. So, I remember I think around 2008, around that time you started Omics.
Yes.
Which later on Omics Online Publishing became Omics International.
Yes, you are right.
And I think you started with one journal and then you went on to become thousands of them.
Yes.
Okay.
So after that, after that, I told the Stanford University is very good alumni. So with their support, the number of editorial boards are coming. So, to start a journal, we have to get quality scientific editorial team. So, for each journal, for Journal of Proteomics and Bioinformatics, with the support from the Human Proteome Organization, we are able to form 50 members editorial board members. But for others, we have to get the right support. See, that support I got from the Stanford University alumni. When I am sending the when the other scientists from Harvard University or some other university or University of Cambridge or London University, if they saw the journal is from the Stanford means, then automatically they also supported. Like that. So, by 2010 or 2011, we got the support of approximately 25,000 scientists across the world for our open access momentum. So, by that time our journals also grown up to about 500 journals. That is how the journals were started. So, starting a journal is not an easy, because we have to get the quality editorial board members. Those should be the experts in that particular field. If you take a diabetes, in the diabetes again subdivisions are about 10 to 15 subdivisions are there. diabetic foot, diabetic nephrology, diabetic neurology, diabetes with related to the food, diabetes mathematics also is there. So many subdivisions are there. Each and every subdivision we can start an open access journal. Similarly, the pediatrics also, pediatric cardiology is there, pediatric neurology, pediatric orthopedics. So many things. So each and every field we are able to start the open access journals with the support from the scientists. That's how we started the journals with one journal. After Stanford, it has become 12, and with the support from the scientists across the world, they become about 500 to 600 journals by 2011-2012. That's how my journey was started.
Now, the obvious question would be, any businessman would ask this, or any angel investor would ask the same question. I'm sure you would ask this question yourself. Nothing in life comes free. There's nothing called free lunch. So when you're giving things free, which is a good thing, because for students they can't afford to pay, but is there a revenue model to keep this going?
Yeah. So initially, to run the journals, we used to get very good support from the National Institute of Health as well as the World Health Organization, European Molecular Biology Laboratory, and the UK funding agencies, Canadian funding agencies. All the government agencies supported the open access, because how the scientists are doing the research from the taxpayers' money. Those taxpayers should be able to access the literature for free of cost. See, COVID-19 was happened recently. Because of the open access literature, each and every common person also can able to understand what is COVID-19 and how much, what type of research is happening. Is the vaccine is going to come or not? When the vaccine is going to come? What type of research is happening? Where the research is happening? Where that article was published? What is the content of that article? So all these things people are able to understand because of the open access journal system. That's we developed.
So from the open access system of journals, you moved into conferences.
Yes.
And I think you've conducted some 3,000 conferences till date.
So how the conferences system was developed is, I told we have by 2012 to 2013, we are able to run about 500 to 600 journals. So to run a journal, we have to conduct an editorial board meeting every year. So editorial board meeting, we did not have the sufficient money to call for an editorial board meeting. So at that time, I got an idea. Why can't we convert editorial board meeting as a scientific conference? If the scientific conference is there, means then the same editorial board members
will travel.
Yeah, they can come with their own travel money. At the same time, the students, young scholars also, they can come and they can present their posters. That's how we are able to start 400 to 500 conferences at a time in 2013-14. Each journal can have each conference.
How did you manage all this? What kind of logistics are you talking about?
Yeah, it is. We have the teams. We have the support from across the world. See, my work is just providing a platform. The scientists they only used to come. They can manage at their own. See, the editorial board members, 40 to 50 members are there, means out of 40 to 50 members, 5 to 6 member executive editors are there. Those executive editors are going to become the keynote speakers of that respective conference. They themselves are managing. Just I am sending one person to overall management, a little bit of logistics.
So basically, it's a decentralized approach.
Yes, it is a decentralized. It is everything is an online platform. Now, because of the COVID-19, majority of those conferences are converted as a webinars. Yeah. So as of now, we are able to conduct about 3,000 plus conferences, annual conferences per year in almost all over the world. So how those conferences are become 500 conferences are 3,000, because initially we used to conduct the subject wise conferences at continent level. After some time, we are able to conduct those conferences at country level. So we are conducting the major conferences in 50 to 55 countries across the world.
Wow, that's pretty big actually.
Yes, we have the user base. It is approximately 10 million user base. Majority of those users are the scientists across the world.
Okay. In 2016, you completed the acquisition of Pulses,
Yes.
and that is a Canadian company, a 30-year-old Canadian company.
Yes.
What was the reason for this acquisition? Was it a natural thing because they were also into the same business?
Yes. Pulses is one of the North American based publishing company. It is a Canadian based, but majorly in America also their presence is there. They are established 30 years old and reputed publisher, and they know if it is comes to the Srinu Babu, it is going to become the global. So, based on that perception, they gave that journal publishing company to us. Not only Pulses, we did acquired about 400 to 430 journals.
Yeah, that's what I remember reading that also.
Yes, 400 to 430 journals and 20 to 25 brands like Pulses. Pulses is one of the brand. We acquired so many publishing companies across the Europe as well as the North America. Allied Academies is there. That is also one of the management journals which are having about 45 to 50 journals, and Longdom is there, Lexis is there. So, each and every publishing company is having approximately 45 to 50 journals. Once they are coming to us, they are going to become the global.
I think they were premium
Yes.
kind of thing. So, there was a payment involved, I guess. That
Yeah, some of the articles for which the authors are not paying and the funding is not there. For few journals, we are keeping the subscription based.
Because I think that's a way it will move, unless it's only for students that.
Yes.
And I think this particular COVID lockdown has actually must have made people realize the importance
of open
having
access.
something like Pulses, because suddenly everybody is digging for information and everybody is at home or locked up somewhere, and they can't go to a library, a physical library, so they
Yes.
need to reach out to a virtual one.
Actually, this type of information, scientific and healthcare information, is very much essential to the common people. So, I recognized this importance in 2007.
That's what I'm saying. You are pretty
so
early there.
Now, at that time, I thought this platform is going to be useful to the scholars and students and scientists. Yeah. Now, the same platform is going to be is useful to the common public also. And we initiated another platform, conversion of scientific and healthcare information to the local languages.
Okay, that must be pretty huge.
So that is very much essential for the common people, especially
Spanish or French.
Yes, German, Chinese, Japanese. So majority of the languages we already did. International languages. Indian languages we just started, because Indian language internet usage is just started. So, it is going to be very much popular. Local languages internet usage is going to be very much popular after 2 to 3 years. By the time our medical information is going to be ready, after 2 or 3 years, if any common person at a village want to know about the diabetes, he can talk to his mobile phone.
So, you will create a voice-based access.
Then the mobile is going to give the answer what is diabetes, what type of precautions he has
One
to
needs
take.
to take that.
Yes, that is in his mother language.
Okay.
So, that is the vision.
So, there must be a huge team driving this, isn't it? I mean, you can't run this entire thing on a shoestring. It must be a pretty. I did read that you have about 3,000 employees,
Yes,
and you have 50,000 square foot office in Hyderabad.
Yes,
and other cities. But how do you manage all this? I mean, basically, because you have scientists who are writing the publications, you have people who are translating it, you have people who are delivering it. I mean, it must be a huge exercise.
Yes, it is a huge exercise, but the scientist support is there. So, we have approximately 45,000 to 50,000 scientists. They are voluntarily participating and giving the content to us to
give it free to people.
Free to the people. At the same time, we are getting the revenues also as a publication cost. And if we are conducting a conference, means we are getting sponsorships from the pharma companies as well as the healthcare companies, because our conferences are the platform to showcase the new products of the companies. If any new product is there, it belongs to the pharma company. If it is introduced through us, means it is going to reach to across the world. That much doctors base, physicians base we have. So, if any pharma company want to showcase some new product, the best platform is our conferences platform. So, that is how we are able to get the revenues, and now also everything has shifted towards the international online platform.
That is what I am saying, that part that you foresaw say almost a decade ago. Today people say after COVID-19 post lockdown, whenever it is eased, things are never going to go back to the same way. People have got used to certain things. For example, work from home has become a popular concept. Organizations like TCS are saying that 75% of the employees will now work from home only.
Yes.
2025 onwards. So when you look at all these kind of things, when you look at a physical library, I remember when we were kids and I used to stay in Osmania University, my house was there. I mean, we used to walk to that library, Osmania library, and look at the huge books, the huge stacks, 8 floors below the ground level. I mean, there would be a big of romance for that. But do you think that still exists?
No, so I think if you are having a mobile, you are connected to the library of the world. If you have an intention to read the content, so that is, I think that is sufficient. There is no need of a physical library now.
So basically, you're talking of a Kindle version,
yes,
that will be there for the research-based journals.
Yes,
also.
Again, it is advanced Kindle also. It is just to reading the books. It is an advanced versions are going to come, and there is no need to read the text. So the future is someone is going to come and someone is going to give the explanation if we have a doubt.
So you're talking
that type of advancement is going to come in the books as well as the online videos.
You talk of things like artificial intelligence and machine learning and all coming into this field.
So yes, this is going to come. So if you're when our student days, if we want to know to the something and some information, we have to go to the library and we have to get rectified. So after for that also we have to verify so many books. Where is that book? What is the reference? This is a huge task. Now nothing is required. So the books, e-books are coming, and if we have some doubt, means then automatically if you are clicking on the particular doubt, and some video will come and it give you the explanation of that particular.
So you can ask Alexa for it.
Yes.
So so when you really talk of the future, because from now here you need to look at the future. You did the past very well. You reached actually ahead of time. But I'm sure suddenly everybody must be now jumping into the bandwagon, which you already jumped a long back. So when you see competition coming up, I'm sure that when the going is good, everybody jumps and say,
of
okay,
course,
can we also do this?
Yeah, competition means, so the medical and scientific publishing is a mafia.
I want to ask you that question actually.
Until 2000 or 2005, the entire publishing is there with only 4 or 5 major publishers. They are the 100 billion, 150 billion dollar companies. It is approximately 4 or 5 state budgets of India. So that much market is there. So because any scientist, if they publishing the one article, the same article is going to be there with them. From that article is going to be given to the subscription to 10,000 or 12,000 universities across the world and research institutes. Approximately 12,000 research institutes as well as the universities are there who are having the subscription to that particular article. From each article, if they are able to take only $2 per article,
that's a huge money you're talking about.
From one article, they can able to generate per year $25,000 to $30,000.
And I think even the scientists may fall for it, because even they are also getting paid for it at the end of the day.
Yes. No, they are not going to get paid. Okay. So scientists that is the mafia. Okay. Scientists are not. They have to publish in their journal, and scientists, if the same scientist who has published the content, they have to buy it for $70 to $80.
Oh,
if it is a subscription, means it is just $2. I faced the same problem when I am doing my PhD. I published my article in Talanta. It is one of the reputed journal, and the same article, if I want to download at my university, means I have to pay for it.
Same thing which you wrote.
Yes. So,
I think
so that is the reason this medical mafia also has played a major game, and the same article, if we want to publish in our journal, then we can publish for $900, and lifetime it is going to be free. So after the evolution of the publishing company like us, the major $100 billion companies are getting down. So every small companies are almost closed, and majority of the companies we did acquired. Now we are able to publish approximately 50,000 to 60,000 articles per year. It is 5 to 10% of the entire publishing output from across the world.
So, Mr. Srinibabu, at the end of it, the last question, how you want to be known? You started in a small place like Vizag, went all the way to Stanford, came back to India, you're traveling across the world. How do we want to be known as at the end of the day? You're saying, what did you make a difference?
Yes, I want to be known as a content provider for free, even to the common people in their interested language. That's what my goal.
I think it's a very simple, but it's a huge task.
It is a huge task, but if we are able to convey that, then we can keep our presence forever.
Srinibabu, thanks a lot for speaking to us at Hybiz News. I think the way you dealt with the issues, when you started from Vizag and your travel, and then South Korea, and then you went to Stanford, I think there's a range of things that happened in your life, and we wish you all the best in terms of your growth and the success going forward. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was Srinibabu Gedela, CEO of Pulses Group, who spoke to us about how he's evolved an online system which is free to get scientific papers from scientists across the world to students, or for that matter, just anybody who needs it. Quite a monumental challenge, if you ask me, because the revenue model comes into flight here. And definitely, he has worked it all out, looking at the growth that he is up to. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.